This video is going to be on solving two-steps equations. So there are steps to solving an equation, which they have it set up right here with these acronyms. So I'll go ahead and just write those in. We're not going to use all of them right now for two steps, but let's see, I'm just going to put distribute, and you can go ahead and write this in. So we got distribute. The C is combine like terms. V stands for variable. N stands for number. And S stands for solve. So with two-step equations, like it tells us down here, it says two-step equations are only involving the last two steps of the process, which is number and solve. Now, the two lessons before this actually, we learned how to distribute and combine like terms on an expression or expressions, depending if it's on the left side or the right side of the equal sign. So remember this right here, this whole thing, we have two terms here. This is called an expression. There's some review. So this whole thing is called an equation. So this side is the expression, this side is an expression. You can only distribute on this side, and you can only combine like terms on one side of the equation. All right, so for two steps, we're just going to involve with number. We'll get more in depth in this in the next lesson, but for right now, for two-step equations, all you're going to do is do number or solve. You're going to be given an example like this. Move this up a little bit. So the steps. So for the n, this is the n. This is the s. So add or subtract constants. So remember, constants are numbers that are by themselves, such as this 4 and this 14. And remember to cancel out a number, a constant, we want to get it equal to 0. So you take the inverse operation. If it's positive, it becomes negative. If it's negative, it becomes positive. And remember, our goal is to isolate the variable. So our first goal is to get the variable on one side of the equal sign and then both numbers on the other side of the equal sign. So in order to do that, for number, so add or subtract constant. So I'm going to move this 4 over here. I don't want to move this 14 over here because remember, our goal is to get the variable on one side and the constant on the other side. So since the variable is already on the left side, I'm going to move the 4. I'm going to cancel out the 4 and move it over to the right side. So to do that, I got to get it equal to 0. So I'm going to take the inverse operation because 4 minus 4 is equal to 0. If I do it on this side of the equal sign, I have to do it on the other side. If I subtract 4 here, got to subtract 4 here. I'm going to carry down the 2x are equal. So 14 minus 4, you should get 10. So we did that one. So the second step is to multiply or divide by coefficient. So you multiply or divide whichever the inverse operation is. So our coefficient is giving a 2. So remember, whenever we multiply or divide, our goal is to get it equal to 1. Whenever we're adding or subtracting, our goal is to get it to equal to 0, kind of like what we did with this 4 minus 4. 4 minus 4 equals 0. So that means multiplying, we have 2 times x. A number next to a variable indicates multiplication, so inverse operation is division. So I'm going to divide by 2 because 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1, so that leaves us with just 1x is equal to, divide by 2 on both sides, and 10 divided by 2 is equal to 5. So if we're solving two-step equations, so for this equation, it's x equals 5. All right, so let's move on to these practice problems. All right, so remember the only two variables that we're using are n and s. All right, so numbers, I'm going to move the numbers first. So this one is just like the first one, so I want to move this 3 over to the right to try to get the variable on one side and constant on the other side. So negative 3x, I'm going to add 3 to that. That'll make it equal to 0. Inverse operation of negative is positive. I'm going to have to do it to both sides. Cross that out, bring down our 3r, bring down our equal sign. 9 plus 3 is 12. And then now we move on to the S, which is solve by using multiply or dividing. So again, we're going to divide to get it equal to 1. If I divide on one side, I have to divide on the other side to isolate the r. 12 divided by 3, you should get 4, because 4 times 3 is equal to 12. So it's 4 equals 12. All right, moving to this one. All right, so now this one is actually very similar to this one. Only difference is that the terms are out of order, and that's okay. We're still going to apply the same concept. The only difference is the number that was by itself, the constant, was on the right side, but now it's just backwards. So same thing, number. So I'm going to get rid of this number, move it over here, because we want the variable on this side, the number on the other side. So we're going to add 24 on both sides. That cancels out. Bring down our equal. Bring down our 6x. And then 18 plus 24, you should get 42. And then, so now we move on to solve. So we have 6 times x, inverse operation is division. 42 divided by 6, you should get 7. So that means 7 is equal to x. And we can write it in x equals 7. So same thing. It's okay if it's out of order, but x is equal to 7. All right, so now going down to these ones, we have a divided by -5 plus 6, 2 terms, is equal to 12. All right, so whenever you have this denominator here, what you're going to want to do is get rid of this fraction. In order to do that, it's just like the others in taking the inverse operation with multiplication and division. So this time, or last couple times, we had a number times a variable, which inverse operation was division. Well, now we have division already. So that means that the inverse operation is going to be multiplication. So we're going to multiply this denominator, since there's only one denominator, we're going to multiply it by all terms on both sides of the equation. So that means we're going to multiply -5 by this expression, which is these two terms, and -5 by this expression, which is just a 12. So we multiply by both sides. All right, so -5 goes into -5 one time, and 1 times a is just a, so those cancel out essentially. But I don't want to cancel out because I have to use it for this and this, so it's kind of like distributing. And then -5 times +6, you should get 30. -30 is equal to -5 times 12. You get -60. Don't forget your signs. All right, so now we treat it just like we're solving one-step equations. So we're going to do the number plus 30 plus 30. -30 plus 30 cancels out. Carry down our a. We isolated the a. So -60 plus 30, you should get -30. And that's a isolated, so a equals -30. All right, so this one over here, same concept. So we're going to have to get rid of this denominator by using distribution, multiplying on both sides. So I'm going to multiply this denominator on both sides. So since this is the only denominator, it cancels out because -3 goes into -3 one time, and then 1 times x is 1, and 1 times 2 is 2, so that essentially cancels out, and you just get the numerator is equal to -7 times -3, which will become a positive, so it's going to be positive 21. Right, and then from here, we need to get rid of the number. You take the inverse operation. That cancels out. We get x on its own. 21 minus 2, you should get 19. So x will equal to 19. So that's how you do two-step equations.